Most people think letting go is a sign of weakness. They believe that if you release something, someone, or some version of the past, it means you lost. But the truth is quieter and far more powerful. Letting go is not giving up. It is choosing to stop bleeding from wounds you no longer need to touch. If you're listening to this, there's a good chance your mind feels heavy. Not because your life is falling apart, but because you are carrying too much. Old conversations you replay in silence, expectations you keep trying to live up to, people you still feel responsible for, even though they no longer walk beside you. Over time, this weight doesn't just make you tired. It changes how you think, how you react, and how you see yourself. I want to tell you about someone close to me, a friend I've known for years. From the outside, everything looked fine. He was capable, disciplined, and reliable, the kind of person others leaned on. But privately, he was exhausted. He held on to resentment from the past, guilt over decisions he couldn't undo, and a constant need to keep everything under control. He believed that holding on was strength, that if he loosened his grip, everything would collapse. What actually collapsed was his peace. He became tense, reactive, and restless. Small things triggered him. Silence felt uncomfortable. Rest felt undeserved. And one day, he admitted something quietly, almost with shame. He said, "I don't know how to stop carrying all of this." That moment changed the direction of his life, not because someone fixed him, not because his circumstances changed, but because he began to understand a different kind of strength. The strength to release what no longer served him. The strength to stop fighting battles that were already over. The strength to accept that control is not found in holding tighter, but in knowing when to let go. This audiobook is about that shift, not the dramatic kind, the quiet one, the internal decision to stop being owned by the past, by other people's expectations, by emotions that drain you instead of guiding you. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you start caring about the right things, your clarity, your peace, your inner stability. There is no single moment where everything suddenly feels light. Letting go happens in small decisions, in pauses before reacting, in choosing not to reopen old wounds, in allowing life to move without forcing it. These moments seem insignificant, but over time, they reshape how you experience yourself and the world around you. Over the next chapters, we will walk through what it actually means to let go in a healthy, grounded way. Not through avoidance, not through denial, but through awareness, emotional discipline, and conscious choice. You will hear real reflections, practical insights, and patterns you can apply immediately, even if your life feels complicated right now. If you have ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or quietly tired of carrying what you can't change, this is for you. And if someone you care about is living under that same invisible weight, share this video with them. Let them know they are not weak for feeling this way, and that letting go might be exactly what they need to start improving their life, starting today. Chapter 1. Why holding on is quietly destroying you. Most people do not realize they're holding on. They simply feel tired in a way that sleep does not fix. Their mind feels crowded, their reactions feel sharper than they want, their patience wears thin faster than it used to. Nothing is obviously wrong, yet nothing feels fully right. This is not because life is too heavy. It is because they are carrying things they were never meant to carry for this long. Holding on rarely looks dramatic. It does not always show up as anger or grief. More often, it hides behind responsibility, loyalty, and the belief that enduring pain is a sign of character. It can be a conversation from years ago that still replays at night. It can be a mistake you corrected long ago, but still punish yourself for. It can be the need to manage everyone's expectations so nothing falls apart. On the surface, this looks like strength. Underneath, it slowly drains you. I watched a close friend live this way for years. From the outside, he seemed stable and capable. People trusted him, they relied on him. He was the one who kept things together. But privately, his mind never rested. He carried old resentment toward people who had disappointed him. He carried guilt over choices he could not undo. He carried pressure to remain the person others expected him to be. Letting go felt irresponsible to him, almost dangerous. He believed that if he stopped thinking about the past, he would repeat it. If he released his anger, it would mean what happened was acceptable. If he loosened his grip on control, everything would collapse. So he held on, tightly, to memories that had already taught their lesson, to emotions that no longer served a purpose, to an identity built around endurance rather than peace. Over time, this holding became his default state. His body stayed tense even when nothing was happening. His mind constantly scanned for potential problems. Small inconveniences felt personal. Silence felt uncomfortable. He was not breaking down, but he was never fully calm. That constant state of readiness, that quiet tension, exhausted him more than any crisis ever had. Here is the part most people miss. Holding on does not protect you from pain. It preserves it. When you replay something repeatedly, you are no longer learning from it. You are reopening it. When you stay attached to outcomes you cannot control, you are not being prepared. You are being consumed. And when you refuse to release emotional weight, your nervous system never stands down. It remains in defense mode long after the danger has passed. This is how holding on quietly destroys you. Not all at once, but gradually. It shows up as irritability you cannot explain, as emotional numbness that makes joy feel distant, as overthinking decisions that used to be simple. You begin reacting instead of responding. You lose your ability to stay present. You become less patient with the people you care about. And the most dangerous part is that it all feels normal. You tell yourself this is just maturity, that becoming more guarded is wisdom, that being constantly alert is being realistic. But wisdom is not tension, and realism does not require suffering. What you are experiencing is not strength. It is an unprocessed weight. My friend reached a moment where he realized he could not remember the last time he felt genuinely calm. Not distracted, calm. Not exhausted, calm. Real calm. The kind where your body is not bracing for impact. That realization shook him more than any external problem, because it meant the threat was not outside his life. It was inside his habits of thought. Holding on creates the illusion of control. It makes you feel prepared, as if keeping everything in your mind will prevent surprises. But the mind was never designed to carry unresolved emotional load indefinitely. Without release, it turns against itself. It creates anxiety where there should be clarity. It creates fear where there should be discernment. It narrows your perspective until everything feels heavier than it truly is. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean excusing harm or denying reality. It means recognizing when something has already taught you what it can teach. It means understanding that wisdom does not require constant replay. You do not honor your past by reliving it endlessly. You honor it by integrating the lesson and moving forward, lighter. When my friend finally admitted that holding on was hurting him, something shifted. Not overnight, not dramatically. But he stopped glorifying emotional weight. He stopped treating suffering as proof of strength. He began to consider that peace might be something you protect, not something you earn through pain. If you feel tired in a way rest cannot solve, this chapter is about you. Not because you are weak, but because you have been strong in the wrong direction. You have been gripping when it was time to release. And recognizing that is not failure. It is the first quiet step towards strength used correctly. Chapter 2. Letting go is not giving up. It is taking back control. For many people, the idea of letting go feels dangerous. It sounds like surrender, like weakness, like admitting defeat. We are taught, directly and indirectly, that strength means holding on longer than anyone else, enduring more, pushing through. So when life hurts, our instinct is not to release, but to grip tighter. We tell ourselves that if we stay alert, stay attached, stay emotionally invested, we will somehow prevent things from going wrong again. But this belief quietly steals your power. Letting go is not the absence of control, it is the return of it. Real control does not come from forcing outcomes or replaying scenarios in your head. It comes from choosing where your attention, energy, and emotional investment belong. When you cannot let go, your inner world is ruled by external forces, by people, memories, expectations, and fears that decide how you feel without asking your permission. My friend struggled deeply with this misunderstanding. He thought letting go meant becoming careless. He believed that if he stopped holding on to anger, he would become passive. If he released guilt, he would become irresponsible. If he loosened his need to control situations, he would lose direction. To him, holding on felt like staying in charge. What he did not realize was that he was not in charge at all. His reactions were automatic. His mood depended on other people's behavior. His thoughts circled around things he could not change. That is not control. That is captivity. True control begins when you can pause. When something happens and you do not immediately react. When you feel an emotion rise but you do not let it hijack your behavior. When a memory surfaces but you choose not to follow it down the same familiar path. This ability does not come from holding on. It comes from releasing what no longer needs your involvement. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop confusing care with suffering. You can care deeply and still refuse to carry emotional weight that poisons your peace. You can acknowledge what happened without reliving it. You can recognize disappointment without building your identity around it. There was a moment when my friend began to see this clearly. He noticed that the more he tried to control outcomes, the more anxious he became. The more he tried to manage other people's feelings, the more exhausted he felt. He realized that most of his effort was not improving his life, it was simply maintaining tension. So he tried something unfamiliar. He stopped intervening where he had no influence. He stopped explaining himself to people who had already decided how they saw him. He stopped replaying arguments in his head, searching for better responses to conversations that were long over. At first, this felt uncomfortable, almost irresponsible. But nothing collapsed. In fact, something unexpected happened. His mind grew quieter. That quiet was not emptiness. It was space. Space to think clearly. Space to notice his own needs. Space to respond instead of react. He was not giving up control. He was reclaiming it from places he had mistakenly handed it away. Control is not about dominating your environment. It is about governing yourself, your attention, your emotional responses, your inner narrative. When you let go of what you cannot change, you free up energy to act effectively where you can. This is why letting go requires strength. Weakness clings. Strength releases with intention. Weakness needs constant reassurance. Strength is grounded enough to walk away without explanation. Weakness fears uncertainty. Strength trusts its ability to adapt. Letting go is also not a one-time decision. It is a practice. You will notice moments when old habits return, when you want to reattach, when you want to control, fix, or relive. In those moments, control is not found in resistance. It is found in awareness, in noticing the urge without obeying it. My friend learned to ask himself a simple question. Is this within my control right now? If the answer was no, he practiced releasing it, even if it felt uncomfortable. Over time, this practice changed his relationship with stress. He no longer felt responsible for everything. He no longer felt emotionally hijacked by situations beyond his reach. This is the paradox. The less you try to control what is not yours to control, the more control you gain over yourself. And that is the only control that truly matters. Letting go is not giving up on life. It is giving up the illusion that you must carry everything alone. It is choosing clarity over chaos, presence over rumination, strength over strain. As you move through this chapter, remember this: you are not asked to stop caring. You are asked to care wisely, to place your energy where it has power, to stop feeding what drains you, and to understand that releasing what no longer serves you is not a loss. It is the beginning of real inner authority. Chapter 3: The Illusion of Control and the Cost of Attachment. Most suffering does not come from what happens to us. It comes from what we believe should not have happened, or what we believe must happen next. This is where attachment quietly takes control. Attachment to outcomes, to people, to identities, to the idea that if things unfold in a certain way, then we will finally feel at peace. And if they do not, something has gone wrong. Attachment feels like control, but it is not. It is dependent. When you are attached, your emotional state becomes conditional. You are calm only if people behave a certain way. You feel secure only if the future looks predictable. You feel worthy only if the past makes sense. This is a fragile way to live, because none of those things are truly within your control. Life does not ask for permission before it changes direction. My friend believed he was in control because he thought everything through. He analyzed conversations, he anticipated reactions, he prepared for worst-case scenarios. He told himself this was intelligence, maturity, and responsibility, but beneath that effort was fear. Fear of being caught off guard, fear of being powerless, fear of feeling pain again. The more attached he became to controlling outcomes, the more anxious he felt. Because control based on attachment is never stable. It requires constant effort, constant monitoring, constant adjustment, and the moment something slips, the mind spirals. Not because the situation is unbearable, but because the illusion has cracked. Attachment always comes with a cost. The cost is freedom. When you are attached to a specific outcome, you lose the ability to adapt. When you are attached to how someone should treat you, you lose the ability to respond with clarity when they don't. When you are attached to an identity, you resist growth because growth threatens what you think you must protect. My friend experienced this when someone close to him made a decision he did not agree with. He felt betrayed, not because harm was done, but because reality did not align with his expectations. He spent weeks replaying the situation, trying to understand it, trying to regain a sense of control. But the more he thought, the more powerless he felt. That was the turning point. He realized something uncomfortable. His suffering was no longer coming from the event itself. It was coming from his refusal to release his attachment to how things should have been. Control that depends on attachment is fragile because it requires the world to cooperate. True control does not. True control comes from flexibility, from resilience, from the ability to remain steady even when circumstances shift. Letting go of attachment does not mean you stop having preferences. It means you stop tying your peace to them. You can want things to go a certain way without believing your well-being depends on it. You can care about people without needing them to meet every expectation. You can value your past without living inside it. This distinction changed how my friend moved through life. He began noticing how often he said, "I need this to happen," when what he really meant was, "I don't trust myself if it doesn't." That awareness softened his grip. He started practicing acceptance, not as resignation, but as realism. Acceptance says, "This is what is happening." Attachment says, "This should not be happening." One creates clarity. The other creates resistance. Resistance drains you. It consumes mental energy. It keeps you in conflict with reality, and reality always wins. Not because it is cruel, but because it simply is. There is a strange peace that comes when you release the need to control outcomes. It does not make you passive, it makes you precise. You stop wasting energy on what you cannot change and redirect it toward how you respond. You act from intention instead of fear. My friend noticed that when he stopped clinging, his reaction slowed. He listened more. He spoke less defensively. He no longer felt the need to convince others of his perspective, not because he stopped caring, but because he stopped needing validation to feel secure. This is the quiet power of letting go. It removes unnecessary battles. It clears mental noise. It allows you to move with life instead of against it. Attachment tells you that if you let go, you will lose something essential. In reality, what you lose is tension. What you gain is agency. You are not meant to control the world. You are meant to meet it with awareness. You are not meant to force certainty. You are meant to develop trust in your ability to navigate uncertainty. When you release attachment, you do not become indifferent. You become grounded. You stop grasping for stability and start generating it from within. As you reflect on this chapter, notice where attachment shows up in your own life. Not as judgment, but as curiosity. Where are you insisting that something must be a certain way for you to be okay? Where are you carrying tension because you refuse to accept what already is? Letting go of attachment is not losing control. It is reclaiming it from illusions that were never serving you. And the moment you stop demanding certainty from life is the moment you begin to experience real inner stability. Chapter 4. Letting go of the past without erasing the lesson. The past has a strange way of staying alive, not because it is powerful, but because we keep feeding it. We replay moments, revisit conversations, and re-examine decisions long after they have stopped changing anything. We tell ourselves we are learning, processing, or staying vigilant. But often, we are simply refusing to let go. Letting go of the past does not mean pretending it never happened. It does not mean forgetting, minimizing, or excusing what hurt you. True letting go means extracting the lesson and releasing the emotional charge that keeps pulling you backward. The past is meant to inform you, not imprison you. My friend struggled deeply with this distinction. There was one decision he made years earlier that he could not forgive himself for. On the surface, life had moved on. He had corrected the course. He had taken responsibility, but internally, he kept revisiting that moment as if replaying it enough times might change the ending. Every time something went wrong in his present, his mind traced it back to that single point in the past. It became an anchor, dragging everything down. He believed holding on to the pain kept him accountable, that if he stopped feeling bad, he would become careless or repeat the mistake. But what actually happened was different. The weight of the past made him hesitant. It made him second-guess himself. It narrowed his confidence and distorted his self-image. He was no longer learning from the past. He was living inside it. This is how the past quietly controls you, not through memory, but through identification. You stop seeing the past as something that happened and start seeing it as something that defines who you are. And once that happens, growth becomes threatening. Moving forward feels like betrayal. Peace feels undeserved. But here is the truth. The lesson of the past does not require lifelong punishment. Pain is not a prerequisite for wisdom. Once a lesson has been learned, suffering beyond that point adds nothing. It only drains you. Letting go of the past begins with honesty, not with denial, but with clarity. You ask yourself a difficult question. What did this experience actually teach me? Not what it cost me, not how it hurt me, but what did it teach me that I now carry forward? When my friend finally faced this question, the answer surprised him. The lesson was not that he was flawed or untrustworthy. The lesson was discernment, boundaries, awareness. The pain had already done its job. Everything beyond that was excess. Once he saw this, something shifted. He stopped revisiting the memory with the same emotional intensity. He still remembered it, but it no longer owned him. The memory lost its power not because it disappeared, but because it was no longer fused with his identity. This is an important distinction. You do not heal by erasing the past, you heal by integrating it. Integration means the experience becomes part of your understanding, not a wound you keep reopening. It becomes information, not accusation. Many people are afraid to let go of the past because they believe it keeps them safe. They think that if they remain hyper-aware of what went wrong, they can prevent it from happening again. But hypervigilance is not safe. It is anxiety wearing the mask of responsibility. True safety comes from trust. Trust in your ability to notice, to adapt, and to respond differently now. Letting go of the past also requires compassion, not indulgence, but realism. You made decisions with the awareness you had at the time. You acted from the tools, emotional capacity, and understanding available to you then. Judging your past self by your present awareness is unfair and unproductive. Growth means acknowledging that you are no longer the same person who made those choices. My friend practiced a simple but powerful exercise. He wrote down the experience that haunted him most, not to analyze it again, but to close it. He wrote what happened, he wrote what he learned, and then he wrote a final line. This chapter is complete. He did not destroy the memory. He gave it an ending. The past often stays alive because it feels unfinished. When you consciously close the chapter, your mind can finally stop circling it. Letting go of the past does not mean you stop remembering. It means you stop returning emotionally. You stop giving yesterday the power to decide how you feel today. You stop letting old versions of yourself dictate the limits of who you can become. There is a quiet dignity in this kind of release. It does not announce itself, it does not look dramatic, but it changes everything. You become lighter, more present, less defensive. Your energy returns to the moment where life is actually happening. If you notice yourself repeatedly pulled into the same memories, ask yourself this: am I learning, or am I punishing myself? Am I honoring the lesson, or am I refusing to move on? Letting go of the past is not disrespecting your story. It is trusting that you have already taken what you needed from it. And once you stop carrying what no longer serves you, you create space for clarity, confidence, and a future that is not limited by what has already passed. Chapter 5. Releasing the need for validation. The need for validation is one of the quietest forces controlling human behavior. It rarely announces itself. It hides behind good intentions, hard work, politeness, and the desire to be understood. You tell yourself you just want clarity, respect, fairness. But beneath that surface is something more fragile, a dependence on how others see you in order to feel at ease with yourself. Validation feels harmless at first. It motivates you to improve. It encourages connection. But over time, it becomes a trap. When your sense of worth depends on external approval, your inner stability becomes negotiable. Every reaction, every silence, every misunderstood intention begins to matter too much. You are no longer living from the inside out. You're adjusting yourself based on feedback that was never meant to define you. My friend did not realize how deeply validation controlled him until he tried to live without it. For years, he measured his decisions by how they would be received. He explained himself even when no explanation was owed. He replayed conversations, wondering if he came across the right way. If someone seemed distant, his mind immediately searched for what he had done wrong. He told himself this was empathy, awareness, emotional intelligence. But the truth was harder to admit. He needed to be seen as reasonable, capable, good, and that need quietly dictated his behavior. The problem with validation is not that it feels good. The problem is what happens when it is absent. When you depend on it, silence feels like rejection. Disagreement feels like a threat. Criticism feels like an attack on your identity. And praise becomes addictive because it temporarily quiets the doubt you never fully resolved within yourself. This constant orientation toward others slowly pulls you away from your own center. You stop asking what feels right to you and start asking what will be accepted. You become careful instead of honest, strategic instead of grounded. Over time, this creates internal tension, because living for validation requires you to fragment yourself. My friend reached a point where he felt emotionally drained after even simple interactions. He could not relax in conversations. He was always adjusting, monitoring, and correcting himself in real time. When he was praised, he felt relieved. When he was not, he felt exposed. That is not a connection, that is self-surveillance. The turning point came when he noticed something uncomfortable. Even when he received validation, it never lasted. The reassurance faded quickly, and the need returned. He realized he was feeding a hunger that could not be satisfied from the outside. Letting go of the need for validation does not mean becoming indifferent or arrogant. It means grounding your sense of worth internally so it is no longer at the mercy of other people's perceptions. It means understanding that being misunderstood is not the same as being wrong, and that being disliked is not the same as being unworthy. When my friend began practicing this, it felt unnatural. He stopped over-explaining. He allowed pauses in conversations without rushing to fill them. He let people interpret him however they chose. At first, this created anxiety, but slowly, something shifted. He felt more present, less reactive, more solid in himself. He learned a powerful distinction. You can listen to feedback without needing it to confirm your value. You can consider others' perspectives without abandoning your own. Validation becomes information, not identity. One of the hardest parts of releasing validation is accepting that not everyone will understand you, and that some people will judge you unfairly. This is unavoidable. The attempt to avoid it is what exhausts you. When you stop trying to manage perception, your energy returns. This does not mean you stop caring how you impact others. It means you stop outsourcing your self-worth. You act with integrity, and then you let go of the outcome. That is emotional maturity. My friend noticed that when he no longer sought approval, his relationships changed. Some became more distant. Others became deeper. The ones built on performance fell away. The ones built on authenticity strengthened. This was not a loss. It was an alignment. Releasing the need for validation also restores your inner voice. When you are no longer scanning for approval, you can hear yourself clearly. Your preferences become more obvious. Your boundaries become easier to hold. You stop betraying yourself in small ways just to maintain comfort. There is a quiet confidence that emerges when you no longer need to be seen a certain way. You speak with less urgency. You move with less hesitation. You do not need to convince because you are not trying to prove anything. That calm is felt by others, even if they cannot explain it. Validation seeking keeps you busy, but empty. Letting it go creates stillness and strength. It allows you to act from values rather than fear. To choose honesty over approval. To choose peace over performance. If you notice yourself constantly seeking reassurance, pause and ask yourself this: what am I afraid would happen if I did not receive it? Often, the answer reveals an old belief that no longer deserves control over you. You do not need everyone to agree with you to be grounded. You do not need applause to be steady. You do not need to be understood to be whole. When you release the need for validation, you do not lose connection. You gain freedom, and from that freedom, you begin to relate to others from a place of quiet strength rather than silent dependency. Chapter 6. Letting go of who you thought you had to be. One of the heaviest things you will ever carry is not a memory, a person, or a mistake. It is an identity, an image of who you believe you must be in order to be accepted, respected, or safe. This identity often forms quietly, shaped by expectations, early praise, criticism, and survival. Over time, it becomes familiar, and because it is familiar, you mistake it for who you truly are. Most people do not realize they are living inside a role. They simply feel pressure to perform, to maintain consistency, to never contradict the version of themselves others have learned to expect. This pressure rarely feels dramatic. It feels like an obligation, like responsibility, like, this is just who I am. My friend lived this way for years. He had built an identity around being dependable, composed, and capable. He was the one who handled things, the one who stayed calm, the one who did not fall apart. This image earned him respect, but it came at a cost. He felt he had no permission to change, no room to soften, no space to admit uncertainty. Whenever he felt overwhelmed, he dismissed it. Whenever he felt unsure, he pushed through. The role demanded strength, and he delivered. But slowly, that strength turned rigid. What once protected him began to confine him. This is the hidden danger of identity attachment. When you cling to who you think you must be, you resist who you are becoming. Growth starts to feel like a threat. Change feels like betrayal. You hold on to outdated versions of yourself not because they still fit, but because letting them go feels like losing stability. Letting go of an identity does not mean becoming lost. It means becoming honest. The roles you play often begin as strategies, ways to cope, ways to earn love, ways to survive. There is nothing wrong with that. But strategies are not meant to become prisons. What once served you can later suffocate you if you refuse to release it. My friend reached a moment where maintaining his image felt more exhausting than the problems it was meant to solve. He realized he was not tired because life was demanding. He was tired because he was constantly performing, monitoring himself, editing his reactions, carrying the weight of being the strong one, even when he needed support. The breakthrough came when he allowed himself to question a simple belief. Who am I without this role? At first, the question scared him. Without the identity, he felt exposed, undefined. But over time, that openness became a relief. Letting go of who you thought you had to be creates space. Space to feel without judgment. Space to respond honestly. Space to evolve. You stop forcing yourself to match an outdated script. You allow your identity to be flexible instead of fixed. Many people confuse identity with integrity. They believe that changing who they are means losing their values. In reality, values remain. What changes is the costume. You can still be reliable without being rigid. You can still be strong without being emotionally unavailable. You can still care without carrying everything alone. My friend began practicing small acts of release. He admitted when he did not have answers. He allowed himself to say no without justification. He expressed uncertainty without apology. These moments felt uncomfortable at first, but each one loosened the grip of the role he had outgrown. Letting go of identity also requires grieving. You are releasing a version of yourself that once felt necessary. That version helped you survive. It deserves acknowledgement, not rejection. Gratitude, not resentment. When you honor who you were, you make it easier to step into who you are becoming. This process is not loud. It does not announce itself. It happens quietly, in choices you make when no one is watching. The moment you stop forcing yourself to react the way you should. In the decision to listen to your internal signals instead of overriding them. There is a subtle confidence that comes from this release. You no longer need to defend your image. You no longer feel threatened by change. You become adaptable, grounded, and real. Others may not always understand this shift, but they will feel it. You become less performative and more present. One of the clearest signs that you are holding on to an outdated identity is chronic tension, a feeling that you are always on, always maintaining, always managing perception. Letting go feels like stepping out of armor you have worn for too long. At first, you feel vulnerable. Then you realize how heavy it was. My friend noticed that as he released his attachment to being a certain type of person, his relationships changed. He felt more authentic, less guarded, more willing to meet life as it was, not as he felt it should be to maintain his image. Letting go of who you thought you had to be does not erase you. It reveals you. Beneath the role is clarity. Beneath the performance is calm. Beneath the pressure is a version of yourself that no longer needs to prove anything. Ask yourself this: who would you be if you stopped trying to live up to an old expectation? What would change if you allowed yourself to evolve without explanation? Strength is not clinging to a fixed identity. Strength is allowing yourself to grow. In the moment you release who you thought you had to be, you create space for a life that feels lighter, truer, and more aligned with who you are now. Chapter 7. How Letting Go Creates Emotional Strength. Emotional strength is often misunderstood. Many people believe it means staying tough, hiding what you feel, or pushing through without complaint. They confuse strength with suppression. But true emotional strength is something very different. It is not loud. It does not prove itself. It is the quiet ability to remain steady inside, even when life is uncertain, unfair, or uncomfortable. Letting go is what makes this strength possible. When you hold on to everything, your emotions control you. Old wounds decide how you react. Expectations dictate your mood. Other people's behavior determines your sense of stability. You may appear composed on the outside, but inside, you are constantly bracing. That is not strength. That is endurance under tension. My friend believed he was emotionally strong because he rarely showed emotion. He stayed functional during stress. He handled pressure without falling apart. Others admired this about him, but privately, his emotions did not disappear. They accumulated. Unexpressed frustration turned into irritability. Unresolved sadness became numbness. He was strong on the surface, but brittle underneath. The moment he began letting go, something unexpected happened. He became calmer, not weaker. He became less reactive, not more passive. His emotions stopped running his behavior because he was no longer feeding them with resistance. Emotional strength begins when you stop fighting your inner experience. Fighting creates tension. Acceptance creates clarity. Letting go is not about ignoring emotions. It is about allowing them to pass without attaching your identity to them. Most emotional pain lingers not because the emotion is intense, but because it is resisted. When you resist what you feel, you create a secondary layer of suffering. You judge the emotion, you fear it, you try to control it. This resistance amplifies the experience and keeps it alive. Letting go removes that resistance. My friend noticed this when he stopped trying to suppress his reactions. Instead of forcing himself to stay strong, he allowed emotions to arise without acting on them. He felt anger without lashing out, sadness without self-pity, anxiety without panic. Each emotion passed more quickly than he expected. This is emotional strength, the ability to feel without being ruled. Letting go also strengthens your nervous system. When you are constantly attached to outcomes, your body remains in a state of alert. You're always preparing for disappointment, conflict, or loss. Over time, this exhausts you. Your threshold for stress lowers. Small challenges feel overwhelming. When you release attachment, your system begins to settle. You are no longer interpreting every situation as a threat to your stability. Your body learns that it does not need to react immediately. This creates space between stimulus and response, and in that space, strength lives. My friend began responding instead of reacting. When something unexpected happened, he paused. When someone disappointed him, he felt the emotion without turning it into a story. He did not become emotionless. He became deliberate. This shift changed how others experienced him. He spoke more slowly, he listened more fully. He did not rush to defend himself. People felt less tension around him, even when conversations were difficult. His calm was not performative. It was grounded. Letting go also breaks the cycle of emotional escalation. When you are attached, one emotion triggers another. Frustration becomes anger. Anger becomes resentment. Resentment becomes withdrawal. Each step feels justified, but the result is disconnection from yourself and others. When you let go, emotions complete their natural cycle. They arise, peak, and fade. You do not add fuel by clinging to them. You do not prolong them by replaying the story behind them. This is not avoidance. It is emotional efficiency. Many people fear that if they let go, they will stop caring. The opposite is true. When you are no longer overwhelmed by emotional noise, you can care more clearly. You're present without being consumed. You're compassionate without being depleted. My friend discovered that his capacity for empathy increased as he let go, because he was no longer defending himself internally. He could listen without preparing a response. He could be supportive without absorbing others' stress. This is emotional strength in relationships. Another aspect of emotional strength is tolerance for discomfort. Letting go does not mean you avoid discomfort. It means you stop escalating it. You allow discomfort to exist without needing immediate relief. This builds resilience. When you stop trying to control how you feel, you become more capable of handling whatever arises. You trust yourself to navigate emotions rather than manage them rigidly. This trust is foundational to inner peace. Letting go also sharpens emotional clarity. When you are not attached, you can distinguish between what you feel and what you should do. You can feel fear and still act wisely. You can feel sadness and still move forward. You can feel anger and still choose restraint. My friend realized that his emotions became informative rather than direct. They signaled something, but they no longer commanded action. That distinction changed everything. Emotional strength is not about being unaffected. It is about being unshaken. It is the ability to remain centered while emotions move through you. Letting go creates this center. If you want to build emotional strength, do not focus on becoming tougher. Focus on becoming freer. Release the need to control every feeling. Release the belief that emotions are threats. Release the habit of clinging to what hurts. Strength grows in the space you create by letting go. And the more you practice this, the more you realize that calm is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of self-control. Chapter 8. Living Light, a new way to move through life. At some point, letting go stops being something you do and becomes the way you live. It is no longer a technique you remember in moments of stress, but a posture you carry into everything. You move differently. You think differently. You respond to life with less friction. This is what it means to live light. Living light does not mean living without responsibility. It means living without unnecessary weight. The weight of expectations you cannot fulfill. The weight of emotions that no longer need to be carried. The weight of stories you keep telling yourself about who you are supposed to be. When that weight drops, even slightly, life feels more spacious. My friend noticed this shift gradually. There was no dramatic breakthrough, no single moment of relief. Instead, there were small changes that added up. He stopped rehearsing conversations before they happened. He stopped replaying them afterward. He stopped assuming every problem required his emotional involvement. Nothing about his external life changed dramatically, but his internal experience did. He felt lighter walking into rooms. Lighter when people disagreed with him. Lighter when plans changed unexpectedly. He was still engaged with life, but not entangled in it. That distinction made all the difference. Living light begins with presence. When you are no longer dragged backward by the past or pulled forward by anxiety about the future, your attention returns to where your power actually is. The present moment. This is not a spiritual idea, it is a practical one. The present is the only place where action, choice, and clarity exist. When you let go, your mind stops constantly narrating. You are no longer interpreting everything as evidence for or against your worth. You notice what is happening without immediately assigning meaning to it. This creates a calm alertness. You are aware, but not tense. My friend described it as feeling less crowded inside his own head. Thoughts still came, but they no longer piled up. Emotions still arose, but they passed without leaving residue. He was no longer carrying yesterday into today. Living light also changes how you handle difficulty. When challenges arise, you no longer add mental resistance on top of the problem. You deal with what is required, then you move on. You do not dramatize, you do not internalize. You respond, adjust, and continue. This does not make you indifferent, it makes you efficient. Many people believe that caring deeply requires carrying deeply, but this is not true. You can care without clinging. You can be committed without being consumed. Living light means your care is intentional rather than compulsive. Another sign of living light is decisiveness. When you are not burdened by over-attachment, decisions become clearer. You do not overthink every option. You choose, act, and adapt. You trust yourself to adjust if needed. This trust removes hesitation. My friend noticed that he stopped second-guessing himself constantly. Not because he was suddenly certain about everything, but because he was no longer afraid of being wrong. Letting go had taught him that mistakes are not catastrophes. They are information. Living light also affects your relationships. You stop expecting others to complete you, validate you, or behave in specific ways for you to be okay. This removes pressure. People feel less controlled around you. Interactions become more honest. Some relationships deepen, others fade. This is not failure, it is alignment. When you live light, you naturally gravitate toward connections that feel mutual and respectful. You no longer chase. You no longer cling. You allow it. This way of living also brings emotional honesty. When something matters, you acknowledge it. When it does not, you release it. You stop pretending to care out of obligation. You stop suppressing your truth to maintain comfort. Living light requires integrity, but it rewards you with peace. My friend realized that many of his previous conflicts were not about the situation itself, but about his refusal to let go of how things should be. Once that grip loosened, conflict lost much of its power. Disagreements became manageable. Disappointment became temporary. Nothing felt like a threat to his identity anymore. Living light does not mean you never struggle. It means struggle does not define you. You experience difficulty without becoming it. You face uncertainty without being destabilized by it. There is also humility in living light. You stop assuming you must have all the answers. You stop forcing clarity where it does not yet exist. You allow life to unfold without needing to control every step. This humility is not weakness. It is confidence without arrogance. When you live light, your energy changes. People sense it. You're easier to be around, not because you are pleasing, but because you are not heavy. You're not carrying unresolved tension into every interaction. Your calm becomes contagious. This way of living is built through repetition, through small acts of release, through daily choices to not engage with what drains you, through reminders that you do not need to react to everything you feel or think. Letting go becomes less about loss and more about refinement. You're constantly asking, is this necessary? If the answer is no, you set it down. Over time, what remains is what matters. Living light is not about escaping life. It is about meeting it without unnecessary armor. You're still strong, but your strength is flexible. You're still engaged, but you are no longer entangled. And when you live this way, you realize something quietly profound. Peace is not something you reach. It is something that emerges when you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. If you've stayed with this audiobook until now, you've already done something important. You slowed down, you listened, you allowed yourself to reflect. And that alone is a form of letting go. Over the course of these chapters, we didn't talk about escaping life or avoiding responsibility. We talked about releasing what quietly drains you so you can live with clarity, steadiness, and inner strength. We explored why holding on exhausts you without protecting you. Why letting go is not giving up, but taking back control. We looked at how attachment creates the illusion of safety while quietly stealing your freedom. We talked about the past and how to honor its lessons without living inside its pain. We examined the need for validation, the identities you outgrow, and how real emotional strength is built not by suppression, but by release. And finally, we arrived at a way of living lighter, not careless, not detached, but grounded and present. The central message is simple, but not easy. Letting go is strength, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that allows you to pause instead of react, to choose instead of cling, to move forward without dragging unnecessary weight behind you. Understanding this idea is only the beginning. The real shift happens when you practice it. Letting go is not a single decision you make once. It is a series of small choices you make every day. Choosing not to replay a thought that leads nowhere. Choosing not to engage in an argument that costs more than it gives. Choosing to release an expectation that no longer serves you. You don't need to let go of everything at once. Start with one thing. One habit of thought. One emotional reaction. One attachment you notice is quietly draining your peace. Pause, acknowledge it, and gently set it down. That is enough. If you want something practical to carry forward, here is a simple invitation. For the next few days, notice where you feel tension. Not just physical tension, but mental and emotional tension. Ask yourself one honest question. Am I holding on to something I don't need to carry? You don't have to force an answer. Awareness itself begins the release. Remember, letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you care wisely. It means you protect your inner stability so you can show up fully, not depleted. It means you trust yourself enough to face life without gripping it too tightly. If parts of this audiobook resonated with you, that means you're already ready for this shift. Not because you're broken, but because you're aware. And awareness is always the first step toward change. Thank you for giving your time and attention to this journey. In a world that constantly pulls you outward, choosing to turn inward, even briefly, matters. I appreciate you for being here, for listening deeply, and for allowing these ideas to meet you where you are. If you found value in this video, consider sharing it with someone you care about. Someone who feels overwhelmed, stuck in the past, or weighed down by emotions they don't know how to release. Sometimes, one message at the right moment can change the direction of a life. Take what you've heard, apply it gently, and allow yourself to live a little lighter each day. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.